that I've been encountering a lot in my music specifically. One, I started in English music. I honestly, it's such a big world in that thing that I was just lost in the abyss of pop songs. And when I found myself in Spanish music, I found my sexy. But that somehow came with a lot of consequences. Why can't I wear this? Why can't I wear this dress? Why is it that every time I sit down to have an interview, the first thing you want to say is, "Why did you say this and this?" I promise you, if it was Maluma, Balvin, or you wouldn't spend 20 minutes talking about one lyric. No, they wouldn't do that because they're a man. But for me, I do agree. We have space for all of them, and that's how we use our voices as creatives. We all have different ways, right? What makes me feel sexy is different than what makes you feel sexy. Because I'm showing skin makes me feel sexy, but that would be wrong of me to say, "Hey, you're a little too covered up." I don't think that's right. I think women already have to deal with so much. For us to be pit against each other by society is just, to me, that's where it gets a little confusing. And I think there's one thing about talking about girl power, and then there's another thing about acting. And I think we're all an example on acting on girl power. I mean, the numbers are still very small, but the increase are because of women in power like yourselves that have provided us with the opportunities to use our voices and be exposed to a bigger percentage of people. And at the end of the day, like you said, they decide. You know, people love Karol G, but people wouldn't have listened to Karol G if we didn't get the support. Same the other way around for me, from women, you know, that are in positions of power. And so going back to the deciding factors and stuff, but it just goes down to society too. Why is it that in Latin culture tenemos que ser ama de casa, solamente tenemos que ser buen mamá, lavar las trastes, quedamos en casa, take care of the kids, but that's all we can do. I know I'm going to be a great mom one day because of my Latin culture, but I can be more than that. You know what I mean? And so I think it's the double standard that it always falls back on. Why is it that we are always being compared to each other? There can only be one successful woman, and that's enough. It's not enough. We need more. That's why we're here, because we need more.
And I think there's some sort of empowerment when a woman embraces her sexuality as well. And I find your situation and Karol G interesting because you know, we don't question the men who are singing these lyrics, but when it's you guys singing it, it's like, no, ¿por qué está cantando eso? Or what are the kids gonna think? And I think it's even more powerful when you guys feel that confident.
100%.
Embrace your sexuality.
Yo creo que me pasó una vez en una rueda de prensa que tuve que los periodistas estaban más en una posición de atacar que de pronto valorar lo que estaba pasando y me decían como, pero en tu álbum tú tienes una canción y tienes una canción, si vamos a hablar por ejemplo de Ahora Me Llama, que creo que es la canción que tiene una frase de las más fuertes de lo que tengo, y la atacada era, pero como mujer, ¿cómo vas a hablar de una situación íntima? ¿Cómo vas a contar una situación íntima o en la cama o cualquier situación íntima? Y yo decía, lo que pasa es que la gente no está acostumbrada a escucharnos porque en realidad no tenemos las plataformas para mostrarnos, pero las mujeres sentimos, las mujeres nos enamoramos, las mujeres también tenemos situaciones íntimas y las mujeres también somos sexys y queremos mostrarlo. Obviamente no cayendo a un punto vulgar, pero también lo sentimos, y ¿por qué no lo podemos contar? Y si lo contamos, ¿por qué tiene que ser una sorpresa? Entonces yo creo que este panel es una invitación de todas maneras para...
A really interesting way of integrating music by women into the playlist, because you guys have specific initiatives, correct? Yeah, it's not about separating women from playlists, instead it's including them in popular ones.
So, during many years, we wanted to bring Latin music to the global stage, and we were so stubborn, we have to make this happen, the world has to listen to Latin music. Yes, we did it last year, everyone knows the Latin music explosion in the last year. However, there are so many genres in the Latin culture, but also we were not fixing the gender gap. In fact, it was kind of growing. And we're like, okay, we need to do something about this. So last year we decided to start programming more women in the entry-level playlists. Of course, the audience decides what we program, but by putting more women in those entry-level playlists, more women were feeding into playlists like Baila Reggaeton or Viva Latino. Baila Reggaeton had maybe one woman a year and a half ago, and today it's over 12 songs that are for female, and that it's a big change, you know. So yeah, I think that's how we started to do that. We also did marketing campaigns, the Viva Latinas campaign with these beautiful ladies right here. I'm very happy to announce something as well. So we have a breaking artist program internationally. We've never had a Latin artist represented, and this year we don't only have a Latin artist, we have a woman, and this is Karol.
Ya habíamos hablado de eso en otro momento y apenas me dio la noticia hoy de que lo iba a anunciar, entonces estoy más nerviosa de lo normal.
Rebecca, when trying to plan these tours like Gloria Trevi and Alejandra Guzman, is there some sort of pushback from anyone saying women don't sell tickets, or is that an issue still?
At that point, I mean, I'm no longer at AEG, but at that point, it didn't matter because I was the decision maker. So I wanted to do it, and the numbers penciled out, and that was that. And that's to your point of putting women in those positions. I think before we get into, hiring the right people and getting to the point where you're already an artist, it starts at a much younger age, and I think that we really have to teach girls to think that everything is possible and to believe that if they have the capacity to do it, that they can do it. And I think that I was talking to, I was very inspired by Dr. Smith. I went to see her speak in New York the week of the Grammys, and she'll share with you now, I'm sure, some statistics, but it's pretty staggering, the disparity between She started a school about, she's from the tech world, teaching girls to code, because it's the same situation. There's not a lot of girls that code. And it's this notion that as children, boys are taught to be brave and girls are taught to be perfect. And because of that, guys will generally play a sport that they're not necessarily good at, whereas a girl will only do a sport where she thinks she can excel. They'll go after jobs that they're not even qualified for, where a woman will have to have 100% of the qualifications before she applies for a job, as opposed to taking a risk. We're definitely taught to not fail. And I think that failure is where you learn your biggest lessons. And I think that we really have to program young girls to believe that they are brave and that they can do whatever they want. And if we start there, that's where we're really going to see this paradigm shift. Because as I grew up in this business, it's my 20th year in the music business, and I had to learn to negotiate. I didn't know how to make a deal. I didn't have any references for that in my life. I didn't have that, so it was just learning to deal with money, and putting a value on myself. And being unashamed and unapologetic about it. Like, we've had this conversation many times, I have so many conversations with my peers and stuff about, like, motivating them just to go and ask for a raise. Like, why? Like, I see my guy counterparts ask for raises all the time. Why are we embarrassed?
Dr. Smith's findings from her research, I want to just read off a couple of Billboard stats and from the Latin Grammys, just to show how underrepresented females are. For Billboard, only 7 songs with a woman as the lead artist reached the top 50 of Billboard's Hot Latin Songs in 2017. In 2015, only 1 woman reached the chart's top levels. It was Shakira, and she was a featured act on Mana's Mi Verdad. In 2016, there were none. Chilean music news site Somos Ruidosa
Over 600 performers were evaluated for gender, over 450 songwriters, and over 240 producers. And the findings, when we compare them to the Hot 100 overall charts for Latin women and Latin women on the charts, the numbers are even worse and more staggering. So let's just take a look at a couple of statistics that I think are important. First, if we think about, and these are just, I just went over what we did right here so that you know